What's going on, guys, and welcome back to our Surviving Java series. It's been a good week or two since I've done any recording. I've made a little bit of progress around here. Now, regarding the surrounding, I'm actually going to have to expand it a little bit pending my ideas on the place. Initially, I wanted it to be very sort of cosmetically focused in the area, but I think functionality is going to have to take priority first of all when we continue with this project. Now, as you can probably tell, a lot has sort of gone on in between last episode and this episode. I've got the full sorting system ready, well, in place for the farm. I've also put an on-off switch up here. I've joyous-proofed it by having a sign letting me know which side is off, because yeah, I've left it running twice now accidentally, and obviously flying machines when unloaded and loaded don't react too well, but that is now sort of fine. And the flying machine's very small, so it's very easy to fix, and I know how that one actually functions, so it's definitely a help. And I've had it running for maybe around about an hour or two while I was over here, and it's actually getting flowers fairly decently quick, which is pretty good. Now, the villager breed over here, this is now all functioning and working fine. So the villagers obviously harvest carrots, give them to one another, then they make babies. Babies grow up in water, and then they go up into a collection chamber over here. We are actually going to have to start moving some of these over soon. Now, my plan over here has actually changed somewhat. After putting the sorting system in place, I realised how big and bulky it is, and I realised that it's not going to be easily hidden in the cosmetic scheme that I wanted to go for. So we're going to switch it up a little bit. It's going to be more functionality over cosmetics, and then we'll focus on cosmetics after the functionality is done. Now, the villagers, we're going to be having the shepherds, and we're going to have, I do believe I want 16 either side. So it will be 7 either side of the 2x2 beacons. So that way we'll have 16 going along there, and then I want another 16 going along this side here. Using the similar sort of design with the wood, we're going to use very sort of nature-esque materials to build and decorate out of. We are obviously going to have to expand this this area over in that direction a little bit, just create a little bit more room for us to work with. And yeah, so after doing that, I'll probably do that in between cuts. The shepherds, obviously, not only can they trade dye, but they also trade multiple different types of coloured wool. So we are going to be making room for a sheep farm, more than likely in this mountain side here, and have that hidden, and then have the collection system mirroring the one that we've got for there. Now, I did make this exactly 16 segments purely because we're going to have 16 colours of wool. So that way everything's here in order to trade. This is just going to be like a mass producing emerald farm, to be honest with you. It's like what I'm going for, as well as the decorational pieces of having the wool and dyes and flowers on hand as and when I need them, which will be an absolute godsend. As for the Squid Farm, initially I was considering putting it into this little section here, which may still be the case, but either way, I'm definitely going to have to drain this segment of the river and block it all off, which means extending our fencing going over and around this area anyway. And then what else? I'm sort of limited on what I can do. So I've got ocean over there and I've got ocean over here. So the Squid Farm is going to work as well as it's going to work. At the end of the day, it's not the be all and end all of this farming area, considering that we have got the Wither Rose farm, which does produce black dye. Just it would mean having to go to yet another location. In between last episode and this episode, I actually done a massive AFK stint over at the Wither Skelly farm, so we've got an absolute ton of bone blocks on hand in order to run our flower farm. Now, I was considering putting in a separate farm in order just to create bone meal for it, and then I thought, well, we've got the Wither Skelly farm, and no word of lie, about 3 hours, and I've got this much bone meal, and that is going to stock us for, well, God knows how long. Not to mention, I also got some other goodies, if I see what I've done with them. 895 Wither Skulls, and then also got a shulker and a bit of coal blocks, which is always handy in a pinch for smelting needs as well as decorational sources. So yeah, all sort of go at the moment with this project. I've actually invested quite a lot of time now. I think getting the villagers into place, we're going to be doing that gradually as and when they're sort of grown up and they go into the chamber to be collected. I actually am going to have to extend the rail over here and get a place for these guys to set up properly and put all of their chambers in, as well as make all of the looms and put them into place. But what I was thinking we could probably work on is the sheep farm today, which means clearing out an area in here. And I think we're going to go for a probably 2 in each cell, and then have the observer looking into the grass block, and then when the sheep eats the grass it sets off the dispenser above with shears in, and then have probably a hopper minecart underneath collecting the wool, going around in a loop. Fairly simple sort of farm design, and then have the items funneled through a water stream and have it coming up similar to the way that we've got this one coming in. Now if you're wondering how this works, I switch that on. It's connected by a bunch of different piston switches, send the signal down. The flying machine then goes back and forth, and then it brushes off all the drops, providing that there's still bone meal in the system, because I did leave it run for a bit and only put in a couple of stacks of bone meal per dispenser as a testing sort of thing. And we will soon see items coming up in the water stream, because it all was working when I left it, provided I actually did switch it off and leave it the adequate amount of time for the flying machine to stop, which has been my case of not doing every now and again. It's like one of the times I thought I had switched it off and the flying machine had just stopped, but you have got to wait for it to do the complete run before it actually sends items up. And so they come through the water streams, and the seeds and so on are obviously going to get composted into more bone meal for us to be recycled into running our flower farm. And all of these have now filled up the filter, so they are actually coming through, and we are getting a lot of blue, which is great, and a lot of white, which is great. Obviously we don't need the white because the amount of bones that we're getting from the Wither Skelly farm, set for white dye is not such an issue, but having it being produced here, I don't know, just more convenience and separating the bone meal from the actual dye sort of thing, because I hate having to go through the extra crafting step of breaking down bones into bone meal, then bone meal into white dye, as opposed to just flowers to white dye as though they're intended to be used. So yeah, it's just a lot more simpler to do it that way. Now I always thought with the villager trades with the shepherds, I thought that they got the possibility of having a dye trade on their first trade, but I do believe it's only a possibility on their second and fourth trades that they can actually trade dye. So what we may have to do is, once we've got the whole point that I want to do the sheep farm today, is so that way we can unlock the trades and make sure that these guys are trading dye, and the ones that aren't we can sort of set fire to and kill off. These guys are just standing on trapdoors with trapdoors separating them, and then they've got their workstations ahead, and then we can sort of close them up like so if we don't want to look at their ugly faces. But nevertheless, we're going to move on and crack on and get the hole dug for the actual sheep farm. Going to be 16 units, 2 sheep per unit, 32 sheep plus 32 villagers, 64 entities in the area. Is not too bad going. The hoppers are probably going to be overkill because we're going to have double the storage system, because we're going to pretty much replicate the same one on this side over this side but for wool. So yeah, let me get to digging, and then once I've got an area cleared out, because I'm going to have to, I completely forgot, you know what, I'm tempted not to even bother dig there because we've got the Guardians still in there, and dealing with them is something I really don't want to have to bother doing. And yeah, I think over this way is actually, no, that's where our flower farm is, so underground here, going over that way. Yeah, good shout. I'm going to do that. Yeah, guess I'll catch you back in a bit. Alright then guys, so this is now actually the following day. It took a good amount of hours putting all of this together. Getting the villagers over was tedious but not difficult. I just ran a minecart track and dropped them all into their cells one by one. I could have sorted out an automated system of having them sort of funnel in and then drop into each cell accordingly, but once they're in place I'm not really overly keen on replacing them all. And I've actually shut off the villager breeder over there by just putting some happy fun time source in there, and we can actually see one of the participants taking part in a dip in the fun source. Yeah, so that's just to avoid entities building up in the area unnecessarily. We have got the sheep farm now in place. Hopefully the time lapses come out alright, so that way you could see it all sort of being put together. So we've got our 16 different cells of 2 sheep per cell per colour, and there was a couple of colours that sort of threw me that I completely forgot about that we also need to do separate farms for. One being brown, so cocoa bean farms definitely on the table of having to be done for this area, and then also green for a cactus farm. Now we have actually got a mass producing farm set up over in the end, one very large one for cactus, so getting hold of that isn't too much of an issue. The brown dye is definitely going to be a little bit of a push for us, so we are actually going to have to build that farm regardless at some point in this area. So the sheep get sheared, the wool then go into the water streams and then go into this sorting system, get funneled into our lovely labelled sorter over here, and they're now all feeding through, and it's not stupidly quick because obviously it's only 2 sheep per cell and they're all relying on that one grass block being grown each time that they feed on it, which is obviously a sort of tick per second thing, like obviously how many updates block has per tick and such. It's all numbers that I get really confused about, so I try to avoid going into details about them, but it's pretty much relying on grass spreading from one block to the other down there, because the sheep tend to eat it fairly quickly with the 2 of them on the one spot. So that's all feeding through fine. We've got our 32 shepherds in their cells, and I am going to, in between this episode and the next, what I will be doing is taking out this bottom layer and actually zombifying all of these and then curing all of these, just so that way we get really cheap trades, and sort of profit margins are a lot higher. So if we can get like the grey wool down to maybe 3 or 4 grey wool, or even 1 would be outstanding, but then they'll always go back up to about 5 or 6 I reckon, and then have that per emerald trade would be outstanding really. Because all of these, if we could drop them down and then get multiple trades, if we was able to get 16 trades per, so 4 wool, we'd get 16 emeralds per trade per villager on just the first trade set. But it would mean sort of AFK in this area. We are AFKing, well, not really AFKing because there's still a lot of work to be done around here, so I'm going to be around here doing the decorational pieces afterwards, which is another thing that I'll probably do a time lapse of at the beginning of the next episode. But in between this episode and the next, I will be doing the zombifying and knocking down their trades. Just, I don't know, oh, okay, we've got skellies over here. just so it's a lot easier, and then I'll need to sort of work out the logistics and the designs for the squid farm, as well as a cocoa bean farm, and possibly a cactus farm, just so we have that one being produced in the area also. That way it would be every single dye in the area, I do believe, if we get cactus and the cocoa beans and squid up and running here. And that would be all 16 of our colours sort of sorted, which is extremely good. I wasn't expecting to make this much progress inside of one episode, and I'm quite happy that I sort of just cracked on and got it done within time lapses, because I'm not such a fan of the whole stopping mid-project and just giving updates saying, okay, well, look what I've done now, and then stop, and then, because everything that I've built is very, very basic sort of stuff. It's not overly complicated. You've got standard item filters with standard sort of hopper chains, and you've got a standard sort of dropper auto system here that as soon as it gets items into it, it'll auto activate and then kick it into the water stream, which goes through to bubble elevators. All very simple. The redstone behind the sheep farms are just beyond simple. Observer facing into the block that they're standing on. Once they eat the grass, it updates. Redstone activates the dispenser. These are all stocked with shears in order to actually shear the sheep. It's all very, very rudimentary and basic sort of redstone mechanics, so there's not a lot of detail that needed going into it. It was just a lot of work behind it to get it all done and sorted. So I didn't feel the need of coming back to explain section by section, because it's pretty simple. And yeah, I'm quite happy with the way that it's sort of come out and looking. I'm not overly keen on the way that this looks with the composters, but what I may end up doing is dropping the item frames down onto this layer of chests, and then having decorational pieces of extending the birch logs coming along this strip of hoppers, and then sort of just boxing off this area. Also, I haven't got a way in or out, so this may actually be my way in and out in between this line here and that line there. Could possibly be the choices, which means decorating sort of around them. And although I do actually like the look of it, because it does look pretty industrial. It's not the look that I was going for this area. I was actually wanting this area to be pretty cosmetic and nice looking, and this amount of hoppers, redstone, is not what I had in mind. So we may do the farms, because the farms regarding cactus and the cocoa bean one may be interesting, because I've not really ventured into that. Poor zombies trying to get the villagers. I've not really ventured onto cocoa bean farm designs, and I don't know what's possible and not possible regarding automating cocoa bean farms. So that's one. And then also the squid farm I'm actually looking forward to, because I need to find a use for these guardians. They're just sitting under there and they're doing nothing. I've got about 6 of them sitting there, so I definitely want to use them, and I don't know what part of the water I actually want to use at the moment, because we have obviously got multiple sections. So regardless of what, I'm going to be clearing out water at some point or another. I just don't know what section I'm going to be doing, but I will do a lot of thinking about the plans between this episode and the next, whilst I'm doing the zombifying. Because I actually have to go back to base and obviously craft up a bunch of the potions as well as golden apples, and yeah, just get everything in order, ready for the zombification of everyone and then curing them all. Now I'm fairly sure that we could probably get a chain system going on, so if we infect this guy will then infect this one, and so on and so forth, and it'll just go down the chain, and that way I can do a mass healing and re-zombification of all of them in a row. So 16 at a time would be really handy. I'll try that. Worst comes to worst is that I'll remove the funtime source over there and just repopulate one side if it completely fails, and I'll have to try to think of another way of doing it more safely, because I don't know, once they're in the curing process, I don't think that they're actually able to attack anyone or anything. Once you fed them the golden apple and they're doing that whole wibble wobble thing with the potion particles coming out of them. Yeah, so I'm fairly sure it should be okay, but obviously I'm not going to do all 32 at the same time, so I'll try with the first 16, and if it all goes a little bit peak-tongue, then I may sort of have to figure out another way of doing it, because getting them into these things is not the most calming or relaxing thing, considering that villagers can be quite frustrating at times, but it's not awfully difficult either, it's just tedious. But yeah, nevertheless, hopefully you've enjoyed the time lapses of this episode, and hopefully I will catch you all in the next one once I have more concrete plans on exactly how it is I want to go about doing things. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed it either way, and hopefully I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye bye.